were women. 30%. Even in the democratic countries, you won't find 30% of the battlefield. They are not just assisting the military, but in combat. 30%. And she's telling, we will be together until we oust this regime in Eritrea. That's the nutshell what she's trying to say. Thank you. I now ask Mr. Adam Ban, Member of Parliament, Federal Member of the Parliament. He's a friend of ours. We know for the first time our case in the Parliament, he raised it. We only asked him 2 months or 3 months ago, and he delivered his promise, and we appreciate for what he did, and we thank him. Now he's going to address us, and let's give him a warm welcome that he deserves. Thank you.
It being your day today, it's also, we're celebrating for the first time ever in Melbourne, Africa Day. And I've just come from North Melbourne Town Hall, where we've just had 2 hours of Africa's Got Talent, where we've seen singing and dancing that I could never even begin to do myself, and that would put most of us here in Australia to shame. I think we discovered our next Michael Jackson this afternoon in North Melbourne, and I very much hope that here in this electorate of Melbourne that I represent, we keep alive some very important principles. I represent, as Mr Munir said, the electorate of Melbourne. I am also the Deputy Leader of the Greens. My area of Melbourne goes from Ascot Vale all the way over to Richmond and has all the suburbs in between. Collingwood, Carlton, Fitzroy, Kensington, North Melbourne, Flemington, where I live, all of those areas. And there's a couple of very interesting things about this area of Melbourne. One is that we have more people in public housing than anywhere else in the country, and many of those people have come here, like you, from overseas. We also have in this electorate of Melbourne, on census night, when they do the measurement for the country, you find that in this electorate of Melbourne, there are more people who were born overseas and have been recently arrived here in Melbourne than anywhere else in the country. And one of the things about Melbourne is that this incredible diversity makes us all richer, and it works. And it works because everyone who lives here is committed to some pretty basic principles. One of those is that we care for each other, and it doesn't matter where you've come from. When you're here in Melbourne, you are welcome and we care for you. But also, more importantly, here in Melbourne, we believe very strongly in human rights and in freedom. And we know that here in Australia, where we have a very peaceful country, one of the good things about being in Melbourne here is that it is a place where we can continue to fight for freedom and for justice and for human rights, not just for ourselves, but also for people that we may have left behind. Because for everyone who is sitting here today, I know that you all have brothers and sisters and family and friends who may be left behind, and you are fighting on their behalf. And what you are doing here is very important. Now, we have had victories before. The country of South Sudan that came from a referendum, it was people in Melbourne who were here who helped run that referendum. Similarly, when Mr Munir approached me a couple of months ago and said, look, I know that there are a lot of people from Eritrea living in your community. We need something done about it. And he sat me down and showed me some of the material and gave me some of the evidence. it really hit home for me as someone who believes in human rights and who believes in freedom and who believes that it's important to stand up to governments wherever human rights and freedom is threatened. One of the things that's particularly important to me is when I was told that Australian companies could go and operate in your country and there doesn't even have to be a guarantee that they're not using slave labour. They could be using forced labour and no one would know, an Australian company. And we need as a minimum Australia to be standing up to governments that do not respect human rights and that do not respect freedom and saying you need to change, and certainly saying we will not allow Australian companies to perpetuate the abuses that we know are going on. And so it was my pleasure to raise the matter in Parliament, and I've got copies of my speeches here, and also to bring the petition that many of you signed to the attention of the Parliament, but also the Foreign Minister, Bob Carr, who's replied, and I've got copies of his reply as well. And I'll just leave you by saying I feel incredibly proud to have many, many people who come from Eritrea and who come from other parts of Horn of Africa and right across Africa, but from your country, especially in my area of Melbourne. You will always have a friend in us because we believe in human rights and standing up for freedom and democracy wherever they are threatened. And I very much hope that just as with people who were in South Sudan who'd come over here, sometime in the next year or two, we are coming here and having a celebration rally to celebrate peace and freedom. So thank you very, very much. It's a real honour to be invited here today, and I hope that today is successful for you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you, and you have a friend in us. Thank you very much.